Today, we're talking about modern day print runs for sports cards once again because there's been some talk online following the announcement for the checklist of 2024 NFL Prism, and it's left a few people speechless, if I'm being perfectly honest, which is pretty funny. But it goes to some of the things I've talked about many times on this channel over the last few years. So I want to use this as sort of a leaping point to remind you guys that modern day print runs are insane. They've been insane for a long bloody time, and you need to be very calculated with what it is you're going to chase. And I want to point you guys into a direction of a live stream I did maybe 2 years ago now that I think is really relevant, including, for modern day cards, even though it was recorded a few years ago, because it talks about, a few things that all collectors should be keeping front of mind. And what I've sort of noticed is while social media is only a microcosm of, collecting cards, some of the talk online has been really, surprising to see. People are shocked at what these print runs actually are when the writing has basically been on the wall for a number of years. Now, some of these content creators have come out and sort of downplayed print runs in recent years, and Neo Cards and Comics certainly wasn't one of those, but he also released something in the last few days that I sort of want to reference today and use this as a bit of a leaping point, because he's touching on the same themes that I've spoken about previously, right? Why most modern sports cards suck, and he talks about that in his 12-minute video, so I encourage you guys to go ahead and check it out. But he's also referencing this Instagram post over here from Sports Card Investor, where he talks about the fact that there are 63 base parallels in 2024 NFL Prism, which is insane. 63 parallels of the same base card, which is, as they go on to say, about a 20% increase compared to 2023 NFL Prism, which is insane. I've said that a few times now, but that's, ridiculous. The fact that Panini is basically going balls to the wall and trying to print this stuff to death is crazy, but it's not one of those things that should surprise anyone, in particular people who frequent my channel, because I did a live stream about 2 years ago now, and we spoke about this exact thing. I had done videos on it previously, but, a mate of mine came on the channel and we spoke about, the issues with these print runs and why collectors need to be more hyper-focused on what it is they're chasing, because not every LeBron Panini card is the same. And that goes without saying, right? Because you have, low-tier products like, Hoops as an example, and then you have the high-end stuff like Eminence and Flawless, etc. But the thing you need to be focusing on is, what does it mean for flagship stuff like Prism? Because people will say, well, I've got a gold LeBron, right? And I use this example in the live stream, so do check it out afterwards. But they'll go on to say, well, I've got a LeBron Prism, I'm safe. It's gold, it's out of 10, I'm safe. But when you think about the fact that LeBron has basically played throughout the entire Panini era, and he's had, a gold Prism released every single year, there's at least 10 or 12 of those by now, right? I can't recall what year first year Prism was, 2013, I think. So you've had 10 or 11. So the fact that you think you've got a gold out of 10 is not really true anymore, because there are 11 years of it. They're all out of 10. So technically there are now 110 LeBron golds out there. And that's not something that people, think about. And whilst flagship stuff like Prism might be safe, it's like, what does that mean then for things like Mosaic and all these other stuff, Select, all these other things released by Panini at the same sort of time, at the same level of print runs? And then you have to add in things like Prism, where they go ahead and make more parallels, like you just saw 63 for NFL. But they've added in things like black golds in recent years and all those kinds of things, right? Gold shimmers, all this other crap, right? All these other random names that make no sense. And each year they keep pumping out more, which, dilutes the supply essentially. It keeps putting more and more out there. And it's like, well, okay, what does that actually mean? When Panini stops making cards and LeBron is long retired, are they going to stop making his stuff? Is Topps going to stop printing LeBron? It's like, no, that's not the case. You've sort of seen what they've done recently with Bronny and all that kind of thing, right? They're pumping out his stuff even more. But it's like, what does that mean long term? And what cards are actually going to be collectible long term? And then you factor in all these other Panini sets like Hoops, Mosaic, Spectra, all these other crap that I literally cannot think of right now. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. Are all those things going to be worth the same down the line? And obviously that's not the case, but you've got a lot of people out there putting money into this sort of stuff, thinking it's safe just because it's LeBron. That's not the case if you get the gist of what I'm saying. And it's certainly not the case when you're seeing things like this where they're adding more and more parallels each year. And if you're sitting back and saying, well, Topps is not going to go ahead and do the same thing, well, I think you're grossly mistaken, because you have to look at what they've done with the whole Victor Wembanyama situation. They just keep releasing more and more sets for this guy, and more product that gets announced, at the 11th hour kind of thing. And there's Topps Chrome, and then there's Topps Chrome Cosmic or whatever it's called. There's all these new sets popping up. They're basically doing the same thing. And in my opinion, it's only going to get worse once they own all the licenses and they realize how much more money they can be making, right? This is not just isolated to Panini. Panini gets a bad rap, and rightfully so, but this stuff is not going to stop with them, right? It's going to continue on with Topps and then whatever other manufacturers coming down the line, because the people have shown they're willing to buy the product and they're willing to spend the money like crazy, and they're willing to feed the habits of these gamblers out on, Whatnot and Fanatics Live and all that kind of crap. And the whole thought process behind this goes back to like what Neo's title is and what I've sort of said, in this live stream and other videos that I've done prior to that live stream. Most modern sports cards are not going to be worth anything long term, right? They're not going to be worth anything long term because there's too many of them out there. They're not really scarce. And the stuff that matters is scarce, obviously, like game worn stuff, on card autos, all that kind of crap. But when you're sort of releasing more and more parallels each year, you got to be very smart about what it is, where it is you're spending your money. And obviously low numbered stuff like 1 of 1s, out of 5s and less, out of 10s and less are going to be, somewhat of a premium because that's the stuff that people actually want. But the whole story of multiple parallels and these crazy print runs gets more insane when you think about the out of 100s, out of 199s, etc. Especially then when you look at, every single product. Now, in that live stream, we talk about that in detail. My mate does a bit of a presentation and shows some of these numbers, and it's crazy. You have some, players. I think we used LeBron in that video. I can't recall exactly, but I think across 2 years of Panini products, across 3 or 4 different products, he has like 10,000 serial numbered cards, which is a lot more than what you guys probably think. And the thing that I want to say off the back of that is just be very smart where you're going ahead and spending your money. And this is not to downplay modern cards or anything like that, but you need to look at it through the lens. And this sounds very common sense, and I'm sure all you guys know this, but you need to look at it through the lens that everybody these days collects their cards and they chuck them straight into one touches, top loaders, gets them graded, all that kind of crap. They're not, getting lost in the wild anymore. Everything that is numbered of value is being stored and will be protected, right? So they're not going anywhere. They're going to be here forever. So if you're putting all this money into select few things, you're not, thinking about what it is you're doing, I think you're going to get burned long term. And I can't recall if I said earlier, yes, there's a lot of new collectors coming in. That's, avoiding the fact that this stuff is being diluted. There might be 10,000 more cards, more parallels being created for a player each year, but there might be 10,000 new collectors coming in each year. So it cancels each other out. But, people want what they want, right? People want the stuff that matters. And I think the things that matter are being watered down. And, maybe I'm off base by saying that, but I just thought this was an important talking point to have again, because people are sort of losing their minds at the fact that there's like 63 parallels, but this is not new. This is not a new thing, right? If you look at print runs from 2019 to today, it's more insane each year and it's only going to get worse. So this shouldn't be a wake-up call for people. It's like the wake-up call should have been 2 or 3 years ago. The wake-up call should have been in the middle of the boom, the pandemic, when people were, going crazy for this sort of stuff that turns out people don't actually want. And I think when it comes down to like what it is you should be chasing, I think it needs to be the stuff that matters. Now, people have pushed back on me when I've said that before because they think it's too vague. They think it's to my own personal opinion. But, it always comes back to me personally around game use stuff on card autos. I think that's fundamentally what most collectors want, right? Because if you're a collector, you're a fan of that team, of that player, of that sport. So you want the thing that maybe enhances that collecting thing for you. And I think that's those things that I just mentioned, on-card autos, low-numbered stuff, game-worn stuff. And obviously some people don't like those things. People just like, base cards without any patches or anything like that within them, which is perfectly fine. But I think the core group of people want that stuff long-term. And I think if you look at, Upper Deck in the past and Exquisite and all that kind of thing, I think history has shown that those kinds of things are the stuff that people want. And obviously, you've got serial-numbered cards from the 90s that also get chased, like the PMGs and all that kind of thing. But fundamentally, the stuff that sells for insane amounts of money are those things, on-card autos, game-worn stuff. And that stuff is rare these days. You don't get that a whole lot with modern-day product. And that's where I think Topps needs to be a bit careful with what it is they're going down and releasing as well, because they need to sort of maintain that scarcity, maintain that excitement about these cards. And if they go ahead and print the crap they have, like they did with that Victor Wembanyama stuff that I already mentioned, and like Panini's sort of doing as they sort of lose their licenses, they don't give two shits, right? So they're just trying to dump everything out they can, maximize the money. But if they're going to go down the same path, they're going to be in a bit of trouble. And I went on a tangent there, completely forgot what I was going to say, but I want you guys to share with me what you think about that rant that I had today. Please check out that live stream. I've done a number of videos on it too, but I think the live stream is the best, way to go ahead and explain it, because I think 99% of modern cards are worthless. And I think that's common sense to say. And maybe some people are going to push back on me for that, but I'm happy to debate you guys in the comments or have comments and have a chat. Not really debate, just have a chat. And just let me know why you think I'm wrong or what you think about this conversation and why you think, I'm right, whatever it is, right? Let's just chat in the comments below. But I just think this one's, a bit surprising to see how many people are sort of shocked online. And again, social media, I can't recall if I said this, is a microcosm or microcosm, whatever the saying is, of collecting. But there were so many people shocked at the fact that there were so many parallels with this modern day release of Prism. It's like, guys, have you not been paying attention? And if you've not been paying attention, what does that mean for your collection, right? How many cards you've gone out there and bought that people won't actually want or are not as rare or scarce as you think they are because that player has 10,000 other serial numbered cards lower than the one you bought across their entire career. Like that stuff, needs to be thought about. And if there are, a shit ton of collectors out there with the same thought process, what does it mean when they go ahead and try and sell them? Like who actually wants to own those things? Who actually wants to own a LeBron out of 199 when he has literally 50,000 of those across his career? Like, sure, that's a cool thing to own. And what I mean by that is not who wants to own that. Everybody wants to own that, obviously, if you're a fan of LeBron or a fan of the sport or whatever it is. But if you're, looking to get a premium amount of money for that, I don't think that's going to happen unless it's, select few cards, rookie year stuff, second year stuff, championship winning seasons, as I've talked to before. That's the stuff that I look for. In the noise, what's the stuff that actually matters? You've got players with thousands and thousands of cards released across their career. Which years actually matter? Like what's the one that me as a collector actually want? And I think that's the stuff that's going to be valuable long term. So anyway, that was one of the main talking points I wanted to have today. I wanted to speak more about it, but it completely slipped my mind until we get to the end of the video. But it is what it is. So share your thoughts down below. Now, before I go, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. I'm wearing the bluey Christmas shirt today, but similar to the last video, I thought I'd show off a couple of cards. So you guys would have seen this in the last video. This is my best pickup for the year. I got this for pretty cheap in my opinion. It's a soul of the game card of Andrea Pirlo, one of the greatest Italian players, one of the greatest soccer players of all time. And I thought that was a pretty damn cool pickup for the year. There's also a couple of others here that I wanted to show off. I got this soul of the game as well for Willian. I got this very cheap. It's a PSA 8. Not worth a whole lot, but I love it for the PC. He's a Chelsea player. I think it's awesome. This is probably the second best pickup that I had for the year when it comes to soccer cards. So again, Willian, not the most sought after Chelsea player or anything like that, but filthy patch. And you don't see patches like that very often for soccer, in particular for Chelsea players. A lot of the stuff that you see modern day from a Topps or even Panini is just trash, right? They're not like what we got with Flawless, and they only did it for 1 year. I've talked about that many times on the channel, but it's a no-brainer to own that stuff. Some of this stuff you might see for sale on my eBay page, actually, because I'm trying to fund a Japan holiday with my wife, but that's beside the point. These are still the best pickups that I've had for the year. I've got Andy Serkis over here, his first auto when it came to the Lord of the Rings sets in a PSA 9. And then probably the big boy, Christopher Lee, PSA 9 as well, on-card auto from the Fellowship of the Ring set. So those were my probably top 5 pickups for the year. There's 5 cards here. Yes, there is. Can't count. But anyway, it is what it is. I hope you guys had a good holiday. Merry Christmas wherever you are in the world. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.